The sound of a spoon tapping against fine china echoed through the dining room of Le Ciel, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. Lily tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear and balanced 3 plates along her forearm with the precision that came from years of practice. She moved between tables with quiet grace, becoming nearly invisible to the wealthy patrons who barely looked up as she set down their $100 entrees. "More water, sir?" she asked, her voice soft but clear. The businessman glanced up from his phone, gave a curt nod without making eye contact, and returned to his conversation. Lily filled his glass and stepped back, scanning the room for any sign that someone needed her attention. After 5 years of waiting tables, she had developed a sixth sense for empty glasses and dissatisfied customers. Le Ciel catered to Wall Street executives, fashion moguls, and tech billionaires, people who made more money in a day than Lily made in a year. The restaurant's crystal chandeliers and velvet chairs seemed a world away from her tiny apartment in Queens, where the ceiling leaked when it rained and the heating worked only half the time. As her shift stretched into its 8th hour, Lily's feet throbbed inside her mandatory black leather shoes. The restaurant required all servers to wear them, polished daily and never scuffed. Her manager had once sent her home for wearing shoes with a barely visible scratch on the heel. She had lost a day's wages for that mistake. "Table 7 needs you," whispered Andre, another server who had been at Le Ciel for over a decade. "They're complaining about the wine temperature." Lily nodded and headed toward the table where 4 women in designer dresses were examining their glasses with disapproving frowns. She knew what was coming. "This Chardonnay is at least 5 degrees too warm," said one woman, holding up her glass without looking at Lily. "Bring us a new bottle and make sure it's properly chilled this time." "Of course, ma'am." "I apologize for the inconvenience," Lily replied, taking the glasses and heading toward the kitchen. Behind the swinging doors, away from the customer's eyes, the atmosphere transformed. Line cooks shouted orders, dishwashers sprayed steaming water over plates, and servers shed their composed expressions. The kitchen was chaotic but honest. No one pretended to be something they weren't. "Another wine complaint?" asked Miguel, the beverage manager, when he saw Lily approaching with the glasses. "Table 7 says it's too warm." Miguel rolled his eyes but reached for a new bottle. "The wine is fine. They just want to feel important." Lily shrugged. "They tip well when they get their way." "How are your hands today?" Miguel asked, lowering his voice. He was one of the few people at the restaurant who knew about Lily's past. She flexed her fingers instinctively. "Better. The pain is mostly gone." 3 years ago, Lily had been known by a different name in a different world. She had been Liana Joe, a rising star at Juilliard, with critics predicting she would become one of the great pianists of her generation. She had performed at Lincoln Center twice before her 21st birthday and had been preparing for an international competition when her mother's diagnosis changed everything. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The medical bills had piled up quickly, and Lily's scholarship hadn't covered her living expenses. She had withdrawn from school, postponing her dreams to care for her mother during her final months. After the funeral, with debt collectors calling daily, Lily had tucked her music sheets into a box, pushed it under her bed, and applied for restaurant jobs. She hadn't touched a piano in almost 2 years. "You should play again," Miguel said, as he carefully decanted the wine into fresh glasses. "My cousin's band needs a keyboard player for weekend gigs." "Nothing fancy, just small clubs in Brooklyn." Lily shook her head. "I don't have time." What she didn't say was that playing in small clubs would feel like admitting defeat, like accepting that her former path was truly closed. "All you do is work and go home," Miguel persisted. "That's not living." "I have bills to pay," Lily replied, taking the tray with the new wine glasses. "We can't all follow our passions." As she returned to table 7, she noticed a new group being seated in the private dining area, a corporate dinner, based on their matching subtle gray suits and subdued conversations. The host was a man Lily recognized from business magazines and tech websites. Ryan Thornton, founder of Prism Technologies and one of the youngest billionaires in the country. His company had developed some revolutionary artificial intelligence software that had made him a fortune before he turned 30. Andre appeared at her side. "We're short-staffed tonight. Can you help with the private room after you finish with table 7? Lily nodded. delivered the wine to the still unimpressed women, and made her way to the private dining area. The room featured a baby grand piano in the corner, a beautiful instrument that gathered dust most nights. Occasionally, the restaurant hired pianists for special events, but tonight it sat silent. As she approached the table to pour water, Lily caught fragments of conversation about stock prices and acquisition strategies. Thornton sat at the head of the table, listening more than speaking, his expression unreadable. "We'll start with the tasting menu," he told Lily when she introduced herself as their server, "and the wine pairing." His voice was quieter than she expected, his manner less demanding than most of the wealthy customers she served. Throughout the evening, Lily moved efficiently between her regular tables and the private room. The corporate dinner progressed predictably, business talk giving way to more relaxed conversation as the wine flowed. Near the end of the meal, as she served coffee, she overheard Thornton mention something about music. "My mother insisted on piano lessons," he was saying to the woman beside him. "I hated every minute of it. Never got past Für Elise." "At least you can play something," the woman replied. "I'm completely tone deaf." "Barely," Thornton laughed. "I haven't touched a piano in years." As Lily set down his coffee cup, her hand trembled slightly. A drop spilled onto the pristine white tablecloth. "I'm sorry," she said immediately, reaching for her cloth to blot the spot. "It's just coffee," Thornton said with a dismissive wave. "No harm done," but the woman beside him frowned. "That's how stains set in. You should be more careful." Lily nodded, feeling her cheeks warm with embarrassment. "Yes, ma'am. I'll bring a clean cloth right away." As she hurried back to the kitchen, Lily caught sight of the piano again. Her fingers itched with sudden longing. In her mind, she could hear Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the piece she had been perfecting before she left Juilliard. She remembered how the music had flowed through her, how her body had seemed to disappear until there was nothing but sound and emotion. "You okay?" asked Andre, noticing her distraction. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," Lily assured him. "Just tired." By the time her shift ended at midnight, the restaurant had emptied of customers. The cleaning staff moved through the dining room, vacuuming carpets and wiping down surfaces. Lily counted her tips, better than usual, but still barely enough to cover next month's rent. As she collected her coat from the staff room, she heard music coming from the main dining area. Curious, she followed the sound and found Miguel sitting at the piano playing a simple jazz tune. "I didn't know you played," Lily said, surprised. Miguel looked up with a grin. Not really. Just fooling around." He hit a discordant note and winced. "See, terrible." He stood up from the bench. "But this old girl deserves better than sitting here gathering dust." Lily approached the piano cautiously as if it might bite. The gleaming black surface reflected the dimmed overhead lights. "Go ahead," Miguel encouraged. "No one's here but us." "I should get home," Lily said, but her feet carried her to the bench anyway. She sat down slowly, placing her hands on the keys without pressing them. The ivory felt cool and familiar against her fingertips. "Just one song," Miguel said. "For old time's sake." Lily took a deep breath and began to play. She started with something simple, a Bach prelude she had learned as a child. Her fingers were stiff at first, making small mistakes she would never have allowed in her Juilliard days. But gradually the music came back to her. Her hands remembered what her mind had tried to forget. She closed her eyes, letting the notes wash over her. For a few minutes, she wasn't Lily the waitress with aching feet and mounting bills. She was herself again, the person she had been before life took a detour. When she finished, she opened her eyes to find Miguel watching her with a sad smile. "You're wasting your talent here," he said quietly. Lily stood up, suddenly uncomfortable with her moment of weakness. We all do what we have to do. As she walked home that night, through streets still bustling despite the late hour, Lily couldn't shake the feeling of the piano keys beneath her fingers. The music had awakened something she had carefully buried, a dream she couldn't afford to revive. Tomorrow would be another long day of serving people who barely saw her. But for the first time in years, as she fell asleep in her tiny apartment with the sound of her neighbor's television seeping through the thin walls, Lily found herself thinking not of bills and survival, but of melodies and possibilities. The next week brought a special event to Le Ciel that had the entire staff on edge. Ryan Thornton had booked the entire restaurant for a private party, a celebration of Prism Technologies' newest product launch. The guest list included tech industry giants, prominent investors, and even a few celebrities known for their interest in cutting-edge technology. "This is a big deal," the manager, Mr. Porter, announced during the pre-shift meeting. He paced back and forth, his usually sleek hair slightly disheveled from running his hands through it repeatedly. "Mr. Thornton specifically requested our venue after his dinner last week. Everyone needs to be perfect tonight. Any mistakes could cost us future business with Prism Technologies." His eyes swept across the room, lingering on each server. "The guests arriving tonight are the kind who can make or break restaurants like ours with a single social media post. I don't need to remind you how many establishments are struggling since the pandemic." Lily shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders, mingling with the lingering fatigue from her second job. Night shifts at a 24-hour pharmacy that she had started taking to help pay off her mother's remaining medical bills. "Lily," Mr. Porter called out, "you'll be handling the main VIP table with Mr. Thornton and his executive team." She nodded, ignoring the flash of jealousy on some of her co-workers' faces. VIP tables meant better tips, but they also meant more scrutiny. The restaurant transformed for the event. Fresh flowers adorned every surface, their sweet scent hanging in the air. Candles cast a warm glow across the dining room, making the crystal and silver gleam. Even the piano had been polished to a mirror shine, though no pianist had been hired for the evening. Lily arrived early to prepare, double-checking every detail of her assigned tables. She polished already spotless glasses and aligned silverware with mathematical precision. Her black uniform was freshly pressed, her shoes shined to perfection. "Nervous?" Andre asked, appearing beside her with a tray of champagne flutes. "A little," she admitted. "I didn't get much sleep last night." She had stayed up practicing piano on a small keyboard she had pulled out from the back of her closet, her fingers remembering melodies she thought she had forgotten. "Just stay invisible and you'll be fine," Andre advised. "That's what they want from us. Good service without having to acknowledge we exist." The guests began arriving at 8 o'clock, filling the restaurant with expensive perfumes and loud laughter. Lily moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, offering champagne and hors d'oeuvres with a polite smile that never quite reached her eyes. Ryan Thornton made his entrance at 8:30, surrounded by a group of people who seemed to orbit around him like satellites around a planet. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Lily's annual rent. His dark hair styled with casual perfection. Despite his wealth and power, there was something approachable about him, a boyish quality to his smile that made people want to be near him. Lily guided Thornton and his inner circle to their table, reciting the evening's special menu with calm professionalism. He didn't seem to recognize her from the week before, but why would he? To people like him, servers were interchangeable, forgettable. The evening progressed smoothly at first. Lily moved between tables with quiet efficiency, anticipating needs before they were voiced. The kitchen delivered each course with perfect timing, and the wine flowed freely. During the main course, Thornton stood to make a speech about Prism's new artificial intelligence platform. The room fell silent as he spoke about the future of technology and his company's role in shaping it. Lily used the opportunity to refill water glasses discreetly. "This AI system will transform how we interact with technology," Thornton was saying, his voice carrying across the hushed restaurant. "It understands human emotion in ways no previous program could." As Lily reached across the table to fill the glass of a woman in a red dress, the woman shifted suddenly, bumping Lily's arm. The water pitcher tilted, sending a stream of ice-cold water directly into the lap of the guest of honor, a gray-haired man who, according to the whispers Lily had overheard, represented one of Prism's biggest potential investors. The man leaped to his feet with a startled shout. Conversation stopped. Every head turned toward the commotion. "I'm so sorry," Lily gasped, horrified. She grabbed a napkin and offered it to the man, who snatched it from her hand with a scowl. "What the hell?" he growled, dabbing ineffectually at his soaked pants. Thornton's speech halted mid-sentence. His expression shifted from surprise to cold anger as he assessed the situation. The easy charm vanished, replaced by the hard calculation of a man who had just watched a potential $1 million deal get drenched in ice water. "Sir, please let me apologize for this inexcusable incident," Thornton said to the investor, his voice tight. Then he turned to Lily, eyes narrowing. "This level of incompetence is astonishing even for restaurant staff." The words sliced through the air like knives. Lily stood frozen, acutely aware of dozens of eyes watching her humiliation. She began. But Thornton cut her off with a dismissive wave. Some people clearly have no talents beyond carrying plates, he said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. And apparently not even that. A few uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the crowd. The woman in the red dress spoke up. It was partly my fault. I moved suddenly, but Thornton wasn't interested in shared blame. Please find someone else to serve our table, he told Lily coldly. Someone with basic coordination skills, preferably. Lily's face burned with shame as she nodded and backed away. Andre appeared at her side, guiding her toward the kitchen with a supportive hand on her elbow. What happened? Mr. Porter demanded when they pushed through the swinging doors. Andre explained while Lily stood silent, staring at her hands. They were shaking slightly. Hands that had once played Rachmaninoff with precision now deemed too clumsy to pour water. Take 5 minutes, Mr. Porter told her with surprising gentleness. Then help with the dessert service for the side tables. I'll have Thomas take over the main VIP section. In the staff bathroom, Lily splashed cold water on her face and tried to steady her breathing. The mirror reflected pale cheeks and wide eyes still bright with unshed tears. The humiliation burned in her chest like a physical wound. Don't let him get to you, said a voice behind her. Diana from the coat check stood in the doorway. Rich people always need someone to look down on. Makes them feel taller. Lily attempted a smile. Thanks, I can't afford to lose this job. Porter won't fire you over one spill, Diana assured her, especially since the lady admitted it wasn't entirely your fault. I hope you're right. Lily dried her hands and straightened her uniform. Better get back out there. For the rest of the evening, Lily kept to the edges of the dining room, serving dessert and coffee to the less important guests, while avoiding Thornton's table entirely. She felt his presence like a dark cloud in her peripheral vision, always there, a reminder of her failure. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Lily overheard snippets of conversation about an after-party at someone's penthouse. Thornton and his inner circle were among the last to depart, laughing loudly as they collected their coats, the water incident apparently forgotten by everyone except Lily. After the final guest left, the staff began the exhausting process of returning the restaurant to its usual state. Lily worked mechanically, gathering discarded napkins and stacking plates. You okay? Andre asked as they wiped down tables together. I'm fine, Lily lied. It's not the first time a customer has been rude. No, but it's the first time you've looked like you might cry about it. Andre studied her face with concern. What that guy said was way out of line. No talents beyond carrying plates, what a jerk. The words still stung. Perhaps because they hit too close to a fear Lily carried deep inside, that she had thrown away her real talent for a life of invisible service. As the cleaning wound down, Mr. Porter gathered the staff for a post-event debrief. Despite the small incident, he said, glancing briefly at Lily, the event was a success. Mr. Thornton's assistant called to say they were pleased overall and will consider us for future events. There was a collective sigh of relief. Jobs were safe for another day. One more thing, Porter continued. The weekend pianist called to quit this morning. Something about a cruise ship gig. He looked annoyed. The charity event is next Saturday and we need someone at the piano. I can make some calls, but if anyone knows a decent player who can step in, let me know. Lily kept her eyes fixed on the floor, her heart suddenly racing. The charity event was one of Lucielle's biggest annual functions, a fundraiser for a children's hospital that attracted wealthy donors from across the city. Thornton would almost certainly be there. After the meeting, as Lily collected her coat, Miguel appeared beside her. This is it, he whispered. Your chance. My chance to what? Get humiliated again? Lily shook her head. No thanks. Your chance to show that arrogant rich boy exactly what talents you have beyond carrying plates. Miguel's eyes gleamed with mischief. Imagine his face when he realizes the server he insulted is a Juilliard-trained pianist. Former Juilliard student, Lily corrected. And I haven't seriously played in years. You played beautifully the other night, Miguel insisted. And you've been practicing since then, haven't you? I can tell by looking at your hands. Lily glanced down at her fingers, slightly calloused from recent hours spent on her old keyboard. It's not the same as performing at a charity event. Sleep on it, Miguel said as they walked out into the cool night air. But remember, opportunities like this don't come along every day. As Lily rode the subway home swaying with the motion of the train, she couldn't stop thinking about the piano, about Thornton's cruel words, about the music that had once been the center of her world. By the time she reached her stop, a small, dangerous idea had taken root in her mind. A chance to reclaim something she had lost, not just her music, but her dignity as well. For 3 days, Lily avoided thinking about the piano at Le Ciel. During her shifts, she kept her head down and moved efficiently through the dining room, grateful that Ryan Thornton wasn't among the guests. At night, despite her exhaustion, her fingers still found their way to her small keyboard, playing softly so as not to disturb her neighbors. On the 4th day, Mr. Porter gathered the staff before opening. "We still haven't found a replacement pianist for Saturday's charity event," he announced, his forehead creased with worry. "I've called every agency in the city, but it's too short notice. They're all booked." Lily stared at her shoes, heart hammering against her ribs. The silence in the room felt heavy, expectant. "What about recorded music?" suggested Thomas, a newer server who had taken over Thornton's table after the water incident. Porter shook his head. The invitation specifically mentioned live piano music. These donors expect a certain atmosphere. His eyes scanned the room. "I'm desperate enough to ask, does anyone here play? Even something simple would be better than nothing." Miguel cleared his throat. "Actually," he said, and Lily shot him a warning glance that he pointedly ignored. "I've heard Lily play. She's really good." All eyes turned to her. Lily felt her cheeks grow warm. "You play piano?" Porter asked, surprise evident in his voice. "I used to," she said quietly. "A long time ago." "She's being modest," Miguel insisted. "She was at Juilliard before—" "Miguel," Lily hissed, but the damage was done. "Juilliard?" Porter's eyebrows rose nearly to his hairline. "Why didn't you say something when I first mentioned we needed a pianist?" Lily shifted uncomfortably. "I haven't performed in years. I'm rusty." "But you could do it," Porter pressed, desperation clear in his voice. "Just background music while people eat and socialize." "Nothing fancy." Lily hesitated. Part of her, a small buried part that had been awakening since that night she played after hours, yearned to say yes. To sit at that gleaming piano and lose herself in music again. But a louder part reminded her of the risk. What if she failed? What if her skills had deteriorated too much? What if Thornton recognized her and made another cutting remark? "I don't know," she said finally. "Just audition," Porter urged. "After closing tonight. If it doesn't work out, no harm done." The rest of her shift passed in a blur of anxiety. Lily moved through her usual tasks mechanically, her mind elsewhere, sifting through mental sheet music, trying to decide what she might play if she actually went through with the audition. By closing time, her nerves were so frayed that she dropped a stack of menus, scattering them across the floor. "Sorry," she muttered as Andre helped her gather them. "You okay? You've been jumpy all night." "Just tired," she lied. After the last customer left and the cleanup was nearly complete, Porter approached her. "Ready for that audition?" Lily glanced toward the door, calculating how quickly she could make her escape. "I'm not sure this is a good idea." "Just try," Porter said, "for me." "For the restaurant." The dining room had emptied except for a few staff members who lingered, curious to hear her play. Miguel gave her an encouraging thumbs up as she reluctantly made her way to the piano bench. The instrument waited, lid already raised, keys gleaming in the dimmed overhead lights. Lily sat down slowly, adjusting the bench height. She placed her hands on the keys without pressing them, feeling the cool ivory beneath her fingertips. "Whenever you're ready," Porter said, standing a few feet away. Lily took a deep breath and began to play. She chose Debussy's Clair de Lune, a piece she had once known so well she could play it in her sleep. The first few notes came hesitantly, her fingers remembering the way gradually. But as the familiar melody unfolded, something shifted inside her. The restaurant faded away. There was only the music, delicate, dreamlike, flowing like water. She closed her eyes, letting muscle memory guide her. The piece built slowly, her confidence growing with each measure. When she reached the climax, her hands moved with newfound certainty, drawing out the song's emotional heart with a sensitivity that had once been second nature to her. As the final notes faded into silence, Lily opened her eyes, suddenly remembering where she was. The staff stood motionless, staring at her with wide eyes. Porter's mouth hung slightly open. "That was—" he began, then stopped, shaking his head in disbelief. "Why are you waiting tables?" The question stung, though he hadn't meant it cruelly. Lily shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "Life happened. Can you do that again on Saturday?" Porter asked. "For the charity event?" The idea still terrified her, but the music had awakened something she'd tried to forget. The pure joy of creation, of expression beyond words. "I'd need to practice more," she said cautiously. "And I don't have anything appropriate to wear." "We can figure out the clothes," Porter assured her. "And you can practice here after closing for the next 2 nights." His expression had changed. He looked at her differently now, with a new respect. "Will you do it?" Lily hesitated only briefly before nodding. Yes, that night she barely slept. Her mind raced with music and memories, with fears and possibilities. What if Thornton recognized her? What if he didn't? Which would be worse? The next 2 evenings she stayed after her shifts to practice on the restaurant's piano. Porter gave her a key so she could lock up when she finished. Sometimes she played for hours, rediscovering pieces she had once performed at recitals and competitions. Her fingers grew sore, developing calluses in places where they had softened over the years. But with each session, the music came more naturally, flowing from some deep place inside her that had never truly gone silent. On Friday night, Diana from the coat check stayed to listen, perched on a bar stool with her chin in her hands. "That's beautiful," she said when Lily finished a Chopin nocturne. "I had no idea you could play like that." "Thanks," Lily said, flexing her tired fingers. "I'm still not sure about tomorrow night, though." "Because of that jerk Thornton?" Diana asked shrewdly. Lily nodded. "What if he recognizes me? What if he says something awful again? What if he does?" Diana countered. "Would that really be worse than giving up something you clearly love because you're afraid of what some rich guy might think?" The question lingered in Lily's mind as she rode the subway home. When had she started giving people like Ryan Thornton so much power over her? Hadn't she already lost enough without surrendering her music too? Saturday arrived with a flurry of activity. The charity event was Licielle's most prestigious annual function, drawing wealthy donors who supported the Children's Hospital with generous checks. The restaurant transformed once again, with fresh flowers and candles creating a warm, elegant atmosphere. Lily arrived early carrying a garment bag containing a simple black dress she had borrowed from Diana. It wasn't designer fashion, but it was elegant enough to pass at a distance. In the staff bathroom, she changed out of her server's uniform and let her hair down from its usual practical bun. With minimal makeup and a pair of earrings borrowed from another coworker, she looked almost like her old self. The Juilliard student who had performed at Lincoln Center, not the waitress who faded into the background. "You look amazing," Miguel said when she emerged. "Like a completely different person." "I feel like a completely different person," Lily admitted. And it was true. Stepping out of her uniform felt like stepping into an alternate reality, one where her life had taken a different turn. Porter approved her appearance with a nod. "Perfect. You'll play during cocktail hour, then for about an hour during dinner. After that, the speeches will start and you can take a break." Lily nodded, her stomach twisting with nerves. "Has the guest list changed at all?" she asked casually. Porter knew what she was really asking. "Thornton confirmed yesterday. He's a major donor, of course he was. The universe wouldn't make this easy." "You'll be fine," Porter assured her, misreading her expression. "Just play like you did during your audition and they'll love you." As 7 o'clock approached, Lily took her place at the piano, partially hidden by a large floral arrangement. From this position, she could see most of the dining room while remaining somewhat obscured, a perfect vantage point for observing without being observed. The guests began to arrive, women in evening gowns and men in tuxedos, their jewelry catching the light as they moved through the room. Lily started with simple background pieces, classical selections that created an elegant ambiance without demanding attention. At 7:30, Ryan Thornton made his entrance, accompanied by a woman in a striking blue dress. He looked exactly as Lily remembered, confident, powerful, with that same charming smile that had vanished so quickly the night of the water incident. From her place at the piano, Lily watched him greet other guests, accepting their handshakes and compliments with practiced ease. As the room filled, Her anxiety gradually faded, replaced by a familiar focus. The music carried her away from her fears, from the dining room, from thoughts of Thornton. For the first time in years, she played not just with technical skill, but with genuine emotion, letting the notes express what words could not. When she glanced up during a brief pause between pieces, she realized several guests had gathered near the piano listening attentively, and among them, his expression curious, stood Ryan Thornton. Lily's fingers faltered for just a moment when she saw Ryan Thornton watching her. She quickly recovered, her eyes dropping back to the keys as she continued playing. Years of training had taught her how to push through distractions, how to stay focused on the music even when her heart was racing. She shifted smoothly into Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat, major. The piece she had been perfecting before her mother's illness had forced her to leave Juilliard. Its hauntingly beautiful melody filled the room, rising above the murmur of conversations. More guests gravitated toward the piano, drawn by the music's emotional pull. From the corner of her eye, Lily could see Thornton still standing there, a glass of champagne in his hand, his head slightly tilted as he listened. Did he recognize her? It was hard to tell. With her hair down and in evening wear, she looked quite different from the server in a black uniform who had spilled water on his investor. As she completed the nocturne, there was a brief moment of silence before the small crowd around the piano burst into appreciative applause. Lily nodded slightly in acknowledgement, unused to being the center of attention after years of intentional invisibility. "That was exquisite," said a woman in a crimson gown. "Are you with the conservatory?" Before Lily could answer, Porter appeared at her side. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're delighted to have Ms. Lily Joe as our pianist this evening. Please enjoy the music as you make your way to your tables for dinner." Hearing her full name spoken aloud in this setting, the name she had used during her Juilliard days, sent an odd shiver through her. It was like being called by a name she had nearly forgotten was hers. As the guests began moving toward their assigned tables, Lily transitioned to lighter dinner music. She kept her focus on the keys, avoiding looking at Thornton's table, which was unfortunately positioned directly in her line of sight. Every so often, though, she would feel his gaze on her, like a physical touch against her skin. The first course was served, and Lily continued playing, her repertoire a mix of classical pieces and tasteful arrangements of familiar melodies. The music had become a shield of sorts, a way to be present in the room without having to interact, without being vulnerable to judgment or ridicule. Midway through the main course, Porter approached the piano again. "Taking a short break, Miss Joe?" he asked, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Lily nodded, understanding his intent. He wanted to create an intermission that would make her return to the piano more noticeable, more of an event. Part of her wanted to refuse to stay safely behind the keyboard. But another part, the part that remembered standing on stage at Lincoln Center taking in the applause, agreed. She rose from the bench and stepped away from the piano. Without the instrument between her and the crowd, she felt suddenly exposed. Several guests smiled at her as she made her way to the small alcove where water and a light snack had been set aside for her. "You play beautifully," said a deep voice behind her. Lily turned, already knowing who she would find. Ryan Thornton stood there, champagne flute still in hand, his expression curious but showing no sign of recognition. "Thank you," she said quietly, relieved that her voice remained steady. "Where did you study?" he asked, taking a step closer. "Your technique is exceptional." "Juilliard," she replied, the word feeling strange on her tongue after so long. "For a time." Something flickered across his face. Interest, perhaps. Why only for a time? The question was personal, intrusive even, but typical of the entitled curiosity of the wealthy. "Life had other plans," Lily said simply, unwilling to share her family's tragedy with this man who had humiliated her so casually. Thornton nodded as if he understood, though Lily doubted he could. What did he know about having to choose between dreams and survival? "You should be on a concert stage," he said, "not playing background music at charity dinners." Lily met his eyes directly for the first time. "We don't all have the luxury of doing what we love." Something in her tone must have caught his attention. He studied her face more carefully, his brows drawing together slightly. "Have we met before? You seem familiar." The moment had arrived. Lily considered lying. considered turning away, considered a dozen different escapes. Instead, she said, "Yes, I served your table at the Prism Technologies event last week. I'm the one who spilled water on your investor." Recognition dawned in his eyes, followed quickly by surprise and then, most surprisingly, embarrassment. "You're the server?" "I am," Lily confirmed, her chin lifting slightly in defiance. "The one with no talents beyond carrying plates. And apparently, not even that." Thornton had the grace to wince at having his words thrown back at him. That was unfair of me. I was stressed about the investor and I was an easy target," Lily finished for him. "Someone you could insult without consequences." He fell silent, unable to deny the truth in her words. "I should get back to the piano," Lily said after a moment. "That's what I'm being paid for tonight." As she turned to walk away, Thornton spoke again. "Wait." When she paused, he added, "I'd like to apologize properly. What I said was cruel and completely unjustified." Lily looked back at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "Apology accepted," she said simply. "Now, if you'll excuse me." She returned to the piano with her heart pounding. The encounter had left her feeling oddly powerful. For so long she had been invisible, a background figure in the lives of people like Thornton, but tonight he had seen her, really seen her, and she had forced him to acknowledge his cruelty. As she settled onto the bench again, Lily made a decision. Instead of returning to the safe, expected background music, she began to play her own composition, a piece she had written during her mother's illness. It started softly, a gentle melody that spoke of loss and longing, then gradually built in complexity and emotion, weaving in themes of resilience and hope. She poured everything into the music, her grief for her mother, her frustration at having to abandon her dreams, her anger at Thornton and others who looked through her rather than at her, and finally her rediscovered love for the piano itself. The piece was technically challenging, pushing the limits of her rusty skills, but the emotion behind it carried her through the difficult passages. The dining room had gone completely silent. Even the servers had paused in their duties, standing motionless around the edges of the room. When Lily played the final chord, letting it fade slowly into silence, she kept her eyes closed for a moment, suddenly afraid to see the reaction. When she finally looked up, she found the entire room watching her. And then, as if on cue, they erupted into applause. Not the polite acknowledgement of background music, but the kind of applause reserved for concert halls and standing ovations. Through the blur of faces, Lily found Thornton. He was standing, applauding with the others, his expression a mixture of awe and regret. Beside him, the investor who had been soaked in water the week before was leaning toward him, asking a question. Thornton replied without taking his eyes off Lily. The applause continued as Porter rushed to her side. "That was incredible," he whispered. "What was that piece?" "Something I wrote," Lily said, still somewhat dazed by the reaction. "The hospital director wants you to play one more before the speeches," Porter said. "Apparently several guests have asked who you are and whether you have a recording they can buy." Lily nodded, adjusting her position on the bench. For her final piece, she chose Rachmaninoff's Prelude in G minor, a powerful, dramatic composition that had once been her signature piece in competitions. Her fingers flew across the keys with newfound confidence, attacking the thunderous chords and delicate runs with equal precision. When she finished, the applause was even more enthusiastic than before. As she rose from the bench to acknowledge it with a small bow, she caught sight of Miguel and Andre standing near the kitchen door, grinning widely and giving her thumbs up. The hospital director took the microphone, praising Lily's performance before beginning the speeches about the children's hospital and its work. Lily slipped away from the piano, heading toward the staff area where she could take a real break. Before she could reach the door, Thornton intercepted her, his expression now serious and determined. "Ms. Joe," he said formally, "I need to speak with you." Lily hesitated, wary of what he might say. But curiosity won out over caution. "Yes? First, I want to apologize again for my behavior last week. It was inexcusable," she nodded, accepting but not absolving. "Second," he continued, "a friend of mine runs the Manhattan Music Academy. They're looking for a piano instructor for their advanced students." He held out a business card. "I'd like to recommend you if you're interested." Lily stared at the card without taking it. "Why would you do that?" "Because talent like yours shouldn't be wasted," he said simply. "And because I owe you for being an entitled jerk." A week ago, Lily might have refused out of pride or resentment. But something had changed tonight when she sat at the piano. She had remembered who she was beyond the uniform, beyond the struggle to pay bills and survive. She took the card. "I'll think about it." Thornton nodded, seeming to understand that was the best he could hope for. "They pay well," he added, "and the hours would probably be more reasonable than restaurant work." "Thank you," Lily said, surprising herself with her sincerity. As she walked away, she felt lighter somehow, as if she had set down a heavy burden she'd been carrying for years. The card in her hand represented something she had almost stopped believing in: a second chance, a way back to the life she had been forced to abandon. Behind her, she could hear the speeches continuing, the clinking of glasses, the sounds of the restaurant that had been her world for so long. But for the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where music was at the center again, one where she was seen and heard rather than overlooked. And it had all started because a wealthy man had underestimated the server pouring his water. 3 days after the charity event, Lily stood outside the Manhattan Music Academy, clutching Ryan Thornton's business card in one hand and her worn portfolio of music in the other. The building was impressive, a renovated brownstone with large windows and a polished brass plaque beside the door. Through the glass, she could see a reception area with sleek furniture and framed photographs of musicians on the walls. For the third time, she nearly turned away. What was she doing here? She hadn't performed seriously in years. She had no teaching experience. This whole thing felt like a mistake, or worse, charity from a man who felt guilty. But as she started to step back, the door opened, and a woman with silver-streaked dark hair appeared. "Are you going to stand out there all day?" she asked, her tone kind despite the blunt words. "You must be Lily Jo. I'm Vivian Chen, the Academy Director." Caught off guard, Lily nodded. "Yes, I was just gathering your courage," Vivian suggested with a knowing smile. "Ryan called me about you. Said you made a millionaire speechless with your playing. That's not something I hear every day." Lily felt her cheeks warm. He exaggerated. "I doubt it." Vivian held the door open wider. "Come in. We have a lot to talk about." The interior of the academy was even more impressive than it appeared from outside. Practice rooms lined a hallway, some with the doors open to reveal students of various ages working at pianos or other instruments. The sounds blended into a chaotic but somehow pleasant symphony of learning. Vivian led Lily to her office, a cozy space dominated by a baby grand piano in the corner. "Ryan said you were at Juilliard. What happened?" The directness of the question surprised Lily, but there was no judgment in Vivian's eyes. Just curiosity and perhaps a hint of compassion. "My mother got sick," Lily said simply. "Cancer. The medical bills—" She shrugged, the familiar pain of that time rising briefly before she pushed it back down. Vivian nodded, as if this explained everything. "And now you're a waitress who plays piano at charity events." "Just the one event," Lily clarified. "I work at Ciel. The regular pianist quit and they were desperate. From what Ryan told me, you did more than just fill in." Vivian gestured to the piano in her office. "Would you play something for me? Not an audition, just, I'd like to hear you." Lily hesitated only briefly before setting down her bag and moving to the instrument. It was a Steinway, perfectly maintained with a touch so responsive it seemed to anticipate her fingers. She chose Bach's Prelude in C major, clean, precise, mathematical in its beauty. When she finished, Vivian was watching her with an intensity that made Lily want to look away. "You have a rare gift," the director said quietly. "Not just technical skill, though you have that in abundance, but emotional intelligence in your playing. You understand what the music is saying." "Thank you," Lily murmured, uncomfortable with the praise. "We need a teacher for our advanced students," Vivian continued, her tone shifting to business. "Ages 16 to 18, preparing for conservatory auditions. 2 afternoons a week plus Saturday mornings." The previous instructor left for a European tour. She named a salary that was nearly double what Lily made at the restaurant for far fewer hours. "But I've never taught before," Lily protested. "Sometimes the finest performers make the best teachers," Vivian replied, "especially those who have faced obstacles. You understand what these students are going through, the pressure, the expectations, the fear of failure." Lily ran her fingers lightly over the keys without pressing them. "Could I think about it?" "Of course," Vivian said, though her expression suggested she already knew what Lily's answer would eventually be. Take a few days, but not too long. Our students need consistency. When Lily arrived for her next shift at Le Ciel, she found the atmosphere had changed. The other servers greeted her with a new respect, and even Mr. Porter seemed to see her differently. "There she is," called Miguel from behind the bar. "Our own piano virtuoso." Lily rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. "Hardly. Are you kidding? People haven't stopped talking about your performance," Andre said, joining them. "Porter says 3 different guests called asking about you." "Including Thornton?" Miguel added with a wink. "Twice," Lily felt her cheeks flush. "He just felt bad about being rude." "Or maybe he was blown away by your playing," Andre suggested. "I know I was, and I don't even like classical music." Throughout her shift, Lily noticed several regular customers watching her curiously. One elderly woman who came in every Thursday for lunch even stopped her to ask, "Weren't you playing piano at the hospital fundraiser?" "You were magnificent, dear." By the end of the evening, Lily had made her decision. She found Porter in his office going over the night's receipts. "I need to reduce my hours," she said without preamble. "I've been offered a teaching position at a music academy." Porter looked up, his expression a mixture of happiness and resignation. "I figured we might lose you after that performance. You don't belong here, Lily." The words might have seemed harsh if not for the genuine warmth in his voice. "I'm not quitting entirely," she clarified. "I'd like to stay on for Friday and Saturday evenings if that works for you." "Of course." Porter leaned back in his chair. "And what about playing occasionally? Our guests haven't stopped asking when the pianist will return." Lily hadn't expected this. "You want me to play here? Regularly? Why not? We could adjust your role. Half server, half entertainment. Same pay, less tray carrying." He smiled. "Think about it." The following weeks brought changes Lily could never have imagined. She began teaching at the Manhattan Music Academy, finding unexpected joy in guiding talented young musicians. Many of her students reminded her of herself at their age, driven, passionate, sometimes overwhelmed by the pressure. She understood their struggles in a way her own professors never had. On Friday and Saturday evenings, she still worked at Le Ciel, but now she ended each night with an hour at the piano. The restaurant added her performance to their advertisements, and reservations for those times quickly filled up. Customers who had once looked through her now requested her by name, both as a server and as a musician. 1 month after the charity event, Ryan Thornton returned to the restaurant. Lily was playing when he arrived, a jazz piece that had the dining room humming with appreciation. He took a table near the piano and listened without interrupting, waiting until she finished her set before approaching. "You took the teaching position," he said. "It wasn't a question," Lily nodded. "Vivian is an excellent director. The students are talented, and you still work here." He glanced around at the restaurant. "By choice now," she clarified. "I enjoy it, and it keeps me grounded." Thornton seemed to consider this. "I'm glad. Though I still think you should be performing more widely." "One step at a time," Lily replied. "I'm relearning who I am without the pressure I put on myself at Juilliard." "I understand that better than you might think," he said, surprising her. Everyone expects technology CEOs to be constantly innovating, constantly competing. Sometimes I miss just coding for the joy of solving a problem. They talked for a few minutes more, an actual conversation between equals rather than the strained interaction of server and customer. Before he left, Thornton mentioned a charity concert being planned for the spring. "They're looking for performers," he said casually. "If you're interested, I could put you in touch with the organizers." 6 months after the night she had been ridiculed for spilling water, Lily found herself standing on the stage at Carnegie Hall, not as a headliner, but as part of a showcase of local talent raising money for music education in public schools. She wore a simple blue dress, her hair swept up elegantly, her mother's locket around her neck. In the audience sat her students from the academy, former co-workers from Le Ciel, and in a prime orchestra seat, Ryan Thornton. Their relationship had evolved into an odd friendship based on mutual respect and